Hi. Well, I'm Frances Pinter, and I'm an academic publisher at Bloomsbury Academic, which is actually a startup within the Bloomsbury Group. Now, if you think we're living in a disruptive time at the moment, I would ask you to just cast your mind back to the early 15th century when, for example, Cambridge University had a library collection of 122 volumes. These were very expensive books. They were so expensive, they were valued at the cost of a vineyard, each book. Well, we know what happened then. This innocent contraption came along, the Gutenberg press, changed everything, and so we got to where we are now, where a book costs about the equivalent of a bottle of wine. But with the digital revolution, our audiences are wanting the books to cost much less, more like the equivalent of a glass of wine, or maybe even nothing at all. Now, we all know that creating quality content is not without cost. So today, what I'm going to be talking about is a particular area of publishing of monographs in academia, which are an endangered species. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, take a look at these figures. 30 years ago, we sold about 3,000 copies of a typical academic monograph. Today, we're selling about 350. So, not good news there. And I'm going to restrict my comments to the publishing of humanities and social sciences. And the reason for that is it's quite different to publishing science, where the emphasis is on the journal articles. The humanities and social sciences rely on the book form because that's the kind of length that it takes to present your arguments. Now, the challenge I see is the following. How do we get to a point where we can publish sustainably open access monographs, the long form publication, be that with a bit of extra rich media or just the text? That is the prize. So should we follow the STM model where the author pays to have a journal article published? No, I don't think so. Because, why? Well, the getting to first copy costs are too high. Stands to reason. A 300-page book, it costs a lot more than preparing a 20-page journal article. And also, in the social sciences and humanities, the research budgets are simply too small to carry the costs of publishing the monographs. So what we need a new business model. How are we going to get there? I'm going to suggest one, but before I do, I want to set a little bit of context here for you. What is it that academics still want from the old publishing models? Well, they want independent verification of quality, that whole peer review that we organize. They want branding and visibility. They want editing and typesetting. They want availability now in a variety of formats. They want marketing and selling. And they want curation. And do not forget the mother-in-law factor. What do I mean by this? Every academic wants to be able to present to his or her mother-in-law the book, the publication. Now, this isn't just me saying this. There have been a number of studies that have looked at what is it that academia still wants out of publishing. And the latest study is from Berkeley, assessing the future landscape of scholarly communications. And they, too, are saying all of the above are still services that academics do want from publishers. maybe not the mother-in-law thing, that's based on my experience, not theirs. So, some people think that this problem will go away when everything migrates onto ebooks, and that we'll make lots of money when we're producing the books and publishing them on all these different e-readers. I fear not. I fear even with the lovely iPad, we're not going to be saved, not this part of academic publishing. So, what are we to do? Well, let's look at the pressures on the academic community. We have an expanding academic ecosystem. Everywhere in the world, there are more universities, there are more academics, there's more research going on. And this is a time when they need more, not less, publishing services. Everybody is calling for impact. Governments want to see impact of the research they're funding. Foundations want to see impact on the research that they're funding. Everybody is looking for a return on investment. So the communication process of the research becomes incredibly important, more so than ever before. Let's look at the pressures on academic publishers. There are lots, but just a couple. There are now the changes in the technology, not just in how we produce books, but also in teaching and research. And so we have to invest lots of money. And we're trying to make these changes, get this transition over with, in a situation of the global economic downturn and its aftermath. This is difficult. And authors still want the services and the royalties. They still want, now increasingly, free at point of use. So, the responses to these pressures? Well, publishers, as we all know in this room, are racing to invest in new digital systems, and we're developing new business models. You've heard of some of them. I'm going to talk about a few of them. I just want to talk a little bit about the e-scholarship program from the University of California, where California has got to put a pot of money aside to allow their scholars to publish online and then sell a few copies in POD in order to recover some of the costs of investing in this program. This is fine. However, it's vulnerable. It's subject to discretionary funding from the state of California. And the last time I checked, California was in a bit of trouble. So is this sustainable? I'm not sure. The Gutenberg E project is a delightful project. It's really, really good. It's the American Historical Association working with Columbia University Press to publish online, open access, half a dozen top-quality historical monographs every year and selling PODs. Is this scalable, this kind of association? I'm not sure. And then there's the digital culture books, where the University of Michigan Press is working with the University Library, Michigan, putting, again, books online, open access, POD, available to people wanting to buy, or libraries wanting to buy these books. Well, that's fine. These are all very new projects, but already, there are the doomsayers. Last month, there was a meeting, the American Library Association, where there was a session, reality check on open content licensing for monographs. And people were already complaining, oh, we're not selling enough copies. But I would ask you, these are new projects. There are all sorts of other variables that are taking their place in this soup. Were they the right books? Were they marketed properly? Or did they just hit the wrong moment in the recession to launch such a project? It's early days. Now, in Europe, there's a very interesting project that's being funded by the European Union, OAPEN. 8 university presses working together, conducting research, some really useful research findings on user requirements for ebooks, monographs. But they still, even though they're halfway through this project, haven't cracked the issue, how do you make this sustainable? How does this work unless you are dependent on subsidies? No answer to that yet. Now, I'd like to just digress for a moment, because it's part of my argument that I'm going to making here, and talk about flat world knowledge. These guys presented here, and they're really great. They're doing textbooks, and textbooks are very different from monographs. They're putting their content online on a Creative Commons license, and the business model is that they should simply sell enough printed books or ebooks or anything else around that content to make this viable. And they can amortize their origination costs across a large number of textbooks. In monograph publishing, however, we have a much smaller number of units that we sell. And so it's quite different. And so I'm now going to talk to you about Bloomsbury Academic. This is a sample page of our website that's going live in April. Our platform is being developed by iFactory, this great company in Boston. They're really great guys, and they're doing some wonderful things for our functionality and for our design. But when I talk about my business model, I ask people to think about ice cream. I hope you've all had dessert. I'm going to talk about ice cream. My colleagues at Bloomsbury are so fed up with me talking about ice cream. I'm so glad they're not here. But I want to talk to you about ice cream. So what we do is putting the plain book content online, Creative Commons licensed in HTML. It'll be looking something like this, and that is the plain vanilla ice cream. And then taking the metaphor a bit further, I then ask people to think about an ice cream cone with the wafer that holds the ice cream. And that is the printed book that we're selling. And we'll sell it in print. We'll also sell it in EPUB on various devices, etc. And then I ask people to think about an ice cream sundae. Think about the chocolate sauce. Think about the strawberry sauce. Think about the nuts, the fruit, all those different things that you can put onto ice cream. And this is our enhanced ebook, where we will be selling content with extra functionalities. You can buy it on subscription, you can buy it individually. It'll have extra content, extra metadata, whatever. So far, so good. Doesn't look that different to some of the things that other people are beginning to experiment with. I'm also going to be launching soon the Bloomsbury Academic Digital Cafe online. And here we're going to create an experimental lab, and we'll be providing tools for collaboration, added value, CC licensing, and monetize. Now, I'm not actually sure what's going to be happening in my digital cafe, but that's the whole point of it. It'll be a space where we can experiment with our authors. But all of the models that I've talked about so far all depend on the basic model, basic premise that you put something up online for free, and then people will come, and if they like it, they'll buy something else. They'll buy it in a book form, or they might buy mugs or T-shirts or anything else that you're selling. But that's the theory. And the problem here with my monographs is that none of these deal with some of the underlying problems, which is that even the lovely model that we're going to be pursuing, it doesn't reduce getting to first copy costs. And it duplicates the worst of the distribution issues. There's simply too many middlemen, especially as we migrate onto E. So, what is to be done? Well, a couple of years ago, Albert Greco and Harold Wharton came up with an idea. And I owe them a lot for this idea. You can't copyright an idea, but at least you can acknowledge it. They said, why not take all the money that libraries are now spending on U.S. university press monographs and decree that all the university presses should publish monographs online, open access, and take that money and pay the university presses to get to first copy cost. Let the university presses then sell POD, sell enhanced ebooks, whatever else they want to sell, but at least cover the first copy costs of getting to digital file. Well, it's a good idea. It's an audacious idea. But there's a problem. It only deals with the United States and American publishers. And scholarship today is truly global. So what do we have to do to deal with this messy ecosystem and satisfying the needs of funding bodies, of libraries that are having their budgets cut, of academics, of which there are many more, producing research, of publishers who don't want to produce monographs because they don't make any money? Well, I think what we need to do is to find new pathways for the money that is already there. So where should we look for this money? Research budgets? No, we said they were too small. Central university funds? No, too many demands on those funds. Libraries? Let's look at the library budgets. What we really need to do is to rethink how libraries spend their book budgets. And what I'd like to do is to take a small amount of the library budgets around the world and aggregate them and create something called the International Library Coalition for Open Access Books, ILCOB. Now, I know this is a very clumsy name, and it's an even clumsier acronym. So I'm offering a bottle of champagne to anybody who comes up with a better name and a better acronym. So pay attention so you get the bottle of champagne. I want to build on existing library consortia. I'd like to see ILCOB aggregate the funds that are already available for buying books in libraries. And I want that fund to pay directly for first copy costs and open access to publishers. How would this model work? Well, publishers would submit titles to ILCOB. ILCOB would then decide what to purchase. The publishers would then do their stuff, get to first copy cost, put it up online on open access content licensing, and publishers would, of course, still be able to make money on POD sales and also any other e-formats that they wished. I think I've found a way where we can get the cost of a monograph down to $2 a copy to any library that participates in this program. But in order to convince you of this, I have to take you through a little bit of arithmetic. Now, with the old print model, a typical monograph will sell, if we're lucky, 400 copies to libraries around the world at, say, $80 a book. These are expensive books. It's because we have to amortize because it's such a short print run. Well, how does that work? The first copy costs are $10,000. All the rest of the publishing costs are $14,000. The library suppliers are $8,000. The total cost to libraries, $32,000 to get 400 books around. So getting to first copy costs represents 31% of what a library pays. And with our $80 book, a library is paying $55 for all of the post-first copy costs. That's a lot of money. Now, my market for my humanities and social science monographs, it's 10,000 libraries around the world. So my print copy is reaching 4% of that market. Now, people with MBAs call this market skimming. I call it market failure. Now, with the ILCO model, if 4%, just 4% of that number, 400 libraries joined ILCO, they would get the cost of the getting to digital file divided up between them, down to $25, a 69% reduction. And if 10% joined ILCO and paid $10 per title, that would represent an 87.5% discount. And if 50%, just 5,000 libraries, joined ILCO and paid $2 a copy, title, each, that would be a huge discount. Now, there'll be some naysayers. Why not? Well, some economists might say, what about the free rider argument? Well, I say, duh, that's not a problem. Add some extra metadata for the members. That will keep the economists happy. Some people will say, oh, but this is eroding the selection control that every individual library has. Not true. Libraries are already organized in consortia that do big deals. And there already is the International Coalition of Library Consortia, over 20 library consortia, 200 library consortium members around the world. So, in conclusion, I want to just run through what are the benefits to scholars. More monographs published, unlocking the logjam, publishing expertise maintained, full open access, and the benefits to publishers, we stay in business. I kind of like that. We secure a strand of work that is more like a service industry rather than the gatekeeping function that we have now. And we concentrate on providing added value for the 1 in 10 monograph that can grow into something else. But we need some conceptual mind shifts. We need to uncouple getting first copy costs from all the other publishing function streams. We need to redefine the publishing function within the scholarly communications ecosystem beyond the traditional and into the future. So I say, let's see what we can do to make better use of the funds that are already available. The ILCO model, a way forward. I think it's worth giving it a shot. Thank you very much.